Hello guys, this is your friend. We are back with a new fanfic. Which is What If Tsunade Refused Naruto's Banishment and Escaped with Him Part 2. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start a new fanfic. Suddenly, the door opened and Sasuke Uchiha walked into the room wearing a hospital gown under a bathrobe and wielding his Sharingan. "You will train me, Jiraiya," Sasuke stated as his guards move with him. "I will not, and your little Sharingan trick will not work on me. But if you don't believe me, let's go outside and see what Gamabunta has to say," Jiraiya replied with a wry smile. The whole council, Sasuke, his escort, and Jiraiya all went outside to the top of the Hokage tower. Jiraiya bit his finger, rubbed the blood on his left hand, and then made several hand signs. Summoning Jutsu. A huge orange toad with a scar on his left eye appeared next to the Hokage tower. "Jiraiya, what do you want, you lecherous old man?" Gamabunta demanded. "Well, Gamabunta," Sasuke tem, Jiraiya's comment caused Sasuke to scowl at him. "Wants me to make him my apprentice, what do you say?" "Oh, and the council ordered it to be so," Jiraiya added. "Come here, boy, let me see you," Gamabunta demanded. Sasuke walked to the edge of the tower and looked directly into Gamabunta's eyes. "You will become my summons," Sasuke stated bluntly. Gamabunta laughed hard and then became very serious. "You attacked and attempted to kill my favorite Gaki. You think any of the toad summons would like you? Bah, I should just lop off your head now to rid the world of your kind. Your kind has been nothing but trouble. Please, Gamabunta, do not disrespect Uchiha-sama," the Haruno representative pleaded. "I do not need your prattling. You will do as I say," Sasuke yelled as his Sharingan began to spin. Gamabunta froze, then his eyes appeared to glaze over. "Summons are special," Gamabunta droned, his eyes then appeared to change back to a jovial attitude. "Your genjutsu was not strong enough to capture me, boy, and even if it was, I would sooner kill you than become your summons. The Toad Elders have decreed that if Konoha demanded we serve Sasuke Uchiha, then we would dissolve our relationship with Konoha, other than Jiraiya and Naruto. We shall therefore become a family summons only for the Jiraiya and Naruto. So the council can shove their demands. For this worm is not worthy of becoming one who will summon toads. I am also sure that the slugs will agree with the toads. So do not push this point again. Summoning is a matter of trust, and we do not trust Sasuke Uchiha. His use of a genjutsu on me was even more proof of his unworthiness. Now I am going to inform Naruto of this little development," Gamabunta stated and then looked at the council. "You know who you are and what you have done. He was supposed to be the hero of Konoha, but you shunned him. For this, the toads will teach Naruto to the best of our abilities. And take that snake-tainted worm back to prison where he belongs." "Hey," Sasuke yelled. "You can't just turn away from me and turn me down." Gamabunta brought his scared eye up to Sasuke's level. The eye was as big as Sasuke. "Oh really? The Gaki earned my respect. You, on the other hand, feel you deserve my respect. What have you done to earn my respect? You attacked a friend of mine, you attempted to use genjutsu to get your way, and now you demand that I acquiesce to your demands. That is your third strike, Tem, I am out of here, Jiraiya." Gamabunta disappeared in a cloud of smoke. "You will let me sign the contract now?" Sasuke demanded. The council heard a window open and someone came up to the roof. It was Tsunade. "What is going on, Jiraiya?" Tsunade demanded. "And what is Sasuke doing out the high-security wing of the hospital?" Well, apparently the council, in its infinite wisdom, decided to let Sasuke out for a friendly stroll. They then have the wisdom to demand that I have Sasuke sign the Toad Summoning Scroll and train him, Jiraiya replied. Tsunade got a tick mark on her temple. "I had specifically told you to deal with the council for me. Are you saying that they aren't too much for you and that I need to deal with them?" Tsunade demanded as she stared down the council. "Even better. The elders are just referring to you as Tsunade Hime instead of Hokage. Jiraiya jabbed at the elders. The tick mark grew even larger. What? I don't mind you referring to me like that in private, but in council chambers you will respect my rank as Hokage. Do I make myself clear? Tsunade demanded. The council is disbanded for the rest of the day. Hiashi, Sum, and Jiraiya, come to my office now. Tsunade demanded as she jumped back down to her office window. The council left in a huff, while the three took the stairs down to Tsunade's office. When the three entered the office, Tsunade was doing paperwork and looked rather pissed. Hiashi activated his Byakugan and then nodded as a single Anbu left the corner of the office and closed the door. Do you think they bought it? Hiashi asked to the assembled group. I hope so, and I'm glad Naruto helped teach me that special henge so I could copy Tsunade and fool the council. Jiraiya replied. Tsunade smiled happily. Well, Naruto, we have figured out what is going on with you. You are a clone of Naruto, not a jutsu one either. You are a near-identical twin to Naruto. We are still examining the extra strand that give you an X chromosome instead of a Y, like Naruto, but we are sure that the Kyuubi had something to do with it. So welcome to the Senju clan, Naruto Senju Uzumaki. Naruto smiled happily. Thanks, Obasan. We also found you have several Kekkei Genkei. Like Naruto-kun, you have rapid healing. Unlike him though, yours is slower as it uses your own chakra. The good thing is that your chakra capacity is the same as Naruto's would be if he did not have Kyuubi, which is still quite substantial. You also appear to be still under your family's special henge. Tsunade continues as she read from the report that she and Shizune had done on Naruto and Naruko. Okay then, here I go. Release. Naruko stated as cloud appeared around her. Hinata squealed with delight as the cloud dissipated. Cute. Hinata and Shizune yelled at the same time. Naruto began to snicker as Naruko's face began to sadden. What's wrong with me? Naruko asked sadly. It's alright, Nichan. Here. Naruto handed her a hand mirror. Naruko's face turned from sad to surprised and then to gleeful. I'm so cute. She screamed as Naruto winced at the sound of his now sister squealing with glee. Naruko had fox ears and a long fox tail, both covered in blonde hair with white tips. Both Naruto and Naruko heard a low chuckle in their minds. Well, she did say that she gave you a present. I guess this is what it is. Naruto commented as he remembered their encounter with the fox. Flashback. Naruto stood next to Naruko holding her hand as they stood before the gates that held the Kyuubi. What do you want, whelp? Oh, I see you brought our daughter. The Kyuubi stated bluntly. Naruto looked totally confused. What do you mean, daughter? She looks just like me except for being female. And how is she actually alive instead of a shadow clone? Naruto inquired. And I don't remember having had with you at any time. Naruko blushed at Naruto's statement. The Kyuubi turned its head in apparent shame. You don't remember the night we spent together? I am hurt. The Kyuubi stated as if Naruto had actually hurt its feelings. You mean you're a girl? Naruto yelled in complete surprise. The Kyuubi turned its head slightly and nodded. What? Both Naruto and Naruko yelled at the same time. You amuse me, Kit. But to answer your question, yes, I am a female, and no, we did not have. It might be possible, but only here in your mind. As for our daughter or your sister as you can refer to her, it just happened to be luck that we were able to produce her. The combination of demonic chakra, blood, and a shadow clone, along with a little help from me created Naruko here. I gave her your genetics but also added something to it. You can call it a surprise present from your mother Naruko. The Kyuubi stated with a chuckle. Naruto and Naruko looked at each other in surprise. Now leave me, kits. I need my beauty sleep. The Kyuubi stated as she lay down and began to sleep. Naruto and Naruko woke up back in the mess hall. Well, that was interesting, Naruto commented as Naruko just nodded. Are you two okay? Tsunade asked in a worried voice. Yeah, but who knew the fox was a vixen? Naruto blankly replied. She even called me her daughter. Naruko stated as everyone in the mess hall jaws dropped at both statements. After a few moments of silence, Tsunade spoke. I warned you not to go, but at least you got some useful information. Yeah, other than her being a vixen with a sick sense of humor, she also was responsible for creating Naruto. Naruto stated. How so? Tsunade asked. Well, it appears the combination of some blood, a shadow clone, and some demonic chakra is enough to create what would best be described as a blood clone, if not a full clone of sorts. I am not sure how to describe it, but the Kyuubi teased Naruto about them having, too. Naruto stated as Hinata froze, then appeared to become depressed. What's wrong, Hinata-chan? Naruto asked, concerned about Hinata. I wanted to be Naruto-kun's first. Hinata said, having a slight fit. The group laughed at Hinata's antics. Relax, Hinata-chan. Naruto could only do that within his mind, so it would be like a dream and would never have happened. Naruto stated as she rubbed Hinata's back in an attempt to comfort her. Naruto and Naruko heard a growl, then a laugh in their minds. Both rolled their eyes. I guess she is somewhat possessive of you, Nisan, or should I say dad? Naruko teased Naruto. End flashback. My guess is that Naruko is a physical clone that shares her soul with Naruto. And thus the reason they both can learn from shadow clones they produce. She of course has better chakra control and has learned all of Naruto's skills, so they are both separate sides of the same coin. Tsunade stated. Wolf appeared suddenly. Sorry to disturb you, Hokage-sama, but we have another guest and she wishes to offer her support from the Inuzuka clan to Uzumaki-sama. Naruto looked at Tsunade, who just shrugged her shoulders. Guess it wouldn't hurt to see what she wants. Is it Tsum? Tsunade asked as the group got up and headed to the entrance of the facility. No, it is Hana Inuzuka, Hokage-sama. Wolf replied. Naruko-sama, you might want to cover up your accessories, ma'am. Wolf added as the group headed towards the front door. Naruko re-engaged her henge, thus hiding her ears and tail. The group exited the building and saw Hana, 2 dogs and 2 Anbu flanking her, all knelt and bowed before them. I bring greetings from the Inuzuka clan, Naruto-sama. Hana began. I also offer my hand in marriage as an offering to you and your clan. Naruto, not knowing what to do, pulled a Hinata and fainted. Hinata was immediately upon him and gently put his head in her lap. Hana wore a confused look upon her face. What happened? My little cousin is not used to so much positive attention. Tsunade replied as Naruto giggled. Hinata gently brushed her fingers across Naruto's face as they waited for him to wake up. My apologies, Lady Tsunade, for me hurting your cousin. Hana stated and again bowed. Tsunade laughed and gently picked up Naruto. Come on in, Hana. We will talk about this inside, as it looks like it's going to rain. Wolf, how come this place keeps on being found by outsiders? Tsunade asked. I am not sure, but we will try to destroy the trail again and create a new one heading off elsewhere. We will also use scent blockers this time. Wolf replied as he and the other Anbu disappeared. Tsunade gently laid Naruto down on his bed as Hinata pulled the cover up on him and then lay down beside him. So the Inuzuka want you to wed Naruto-kun? Tsunade asked, as they all took seats in various places in the room. Naruko sat at the foot of Naruto's bed and laid a hand on his leg. Hana looked at the blonde girl. Who is she and why does she remind me of Naruto-sama? Hana asked. I am his sister. Naruko answered but put her hand up to stop the next question. It is a long story and we still have a question pending with you. Hana looked at the girl then nodded. Well, sort of. You see, the council members are getting full of themselves, and they appear to want most of the eligible kunoichi around Sasuke Uchiha's age to be betrothed to him. The clans are not pleased and are arguing against it. Hiyashi-sama has already said that he would marry Hinata-san here off to Naruto-sama before he would have an Uchiha in his family. Hana nodded to Hinata, who beamed at hearing her father at least somewhat approved of her chasing Naruto. So my Nisan is now the most eligible bachelor on the market. Naruko commented then giggled. Looks like Hinata-chan's got competition. Hinata stuck her tongue out at Naruko then hugged Naruto gently. Everyone laughed at the girl's antics. I would of course allow Hinata-san to be the alpha female in the relationship. Hana stated kindly. Well, you see, there are some other complications to add to this mess. Shizune said with a blush. Don't tell me all of you are going to marry him too. Hana replied in shock. No, that isn't it at all. Shizune tried to reassure Hana while she waved her hands in front of her. You see, Naruto-kun has agreed to father a few children with Tsunade-sama, using me as the surrogate mother, in the hopes of bringing back the Mokuden bloodline. Shizune explained. Hana ed her head. So would that make you wife number 2 or what? Shizune blushed, and this time both Hinata and Tsunade noticed it. I am not sure, Shizune stammered out. Hana shook her head. So Tsunade-sama is going to bank some eggs and then fertilize them later. Tsunade just nodded. I am quite familiar with the procedure, as we do that with our dogs on occasion when we have either a strong bitch or male. Are the Inuzuka the only ones? Naruto inquired. No, the Inuzuka are not the only clan that is offering to be betrothed to Naruto-sama. Hana commented as Tsunade raised an eyebrow. Yes, the Kurama also want to offer also. The problem is the heir suffers from being haunted by a demon. And the clan is very powerful with genjutsu. Naruto woke up and looked longingly up at Hinata. What happened, Hinata-chan? You, Naruto-kun, have a lot to think about. Hinata replied as she gently tapped her fingers on his nose. What do you mean, Hinata-chan? Naruto continued to look confused. Well, Naruto-kun, you are now being asked to marry Hana Inuzuka and possibly the heir to the Kurama clan. But first, you have to answer if you will marry the heir to the Hyuga clan. Hinata said boldly. If it will make you happy, Hinata-chan, I will, as you make me happy. Naruto answered as he leaned his head into her hip and closed his eyes contently. The clans will not require an answer right away. Also, the way the council is pushing, several of the clans may desert the village and join you, Naruto-sama. The heads of the Hyuga, Inuzuka, Yamanaka, Akamaiki, Nara, and Kurama clans all support you, both Tsunade-sama and Naruto-sama. Hana stated. The Nara have the hardest decision, as they have medical, research and animal husbandry facilities that would have to be shut down and moved from Konoha, even though they do support you. Bear appeared with someone behind him and a kunai to his throat. You know, Gaki, I was hired to kill you, but I say it. Want to jump into bed and screw my brains out? Anko stepped out from behind Bear and withdrew her kunai. Naruto's eyes went wide. Why would I want to have with a crazy bitch like you? Naruto yelled as he pointed his finger at Anko. Anko, not fazed by the question, just cleaned her fingernails with her kunai. Because it would be fun, Gaki. Anko wore a devious smile as she looked hungrily at Naruto. See, I told you she could help you with your education lessons. Tsunade teased. What? Did he not get the lesson? We will have to fix that. Anko stated as she took off her trench coat and began to remove her fishnet shirt. Hinata's eyes went wide, then became stone cold. No, mine. Hinata yelled as she leaned over and protectively hugged Naruto. Anko smirked as she was holding her shirt, revealing her to the group. Well, then maybe later, Gaki. You don't know what you missed, but we can find out later. Anko walked out with her trench coat and shirt held over her shoulder and a definite swagger in her walk. Either you get him first or I will. Anko warned as she walked with the Anbu, who just shook his head and showed her a room down the hall. Naruto shook his head. Man, my life is getting too complicated. First, I find the girl I thought I loved hates me for doing what she asked. Then, I find one who loves me for me, I get offered to become a father, then I'm offered the daughters of several clans, and then to top it off, psycho bitch wants to join the club. Naruto exclaimed in frustration. I heard that, Gaki. I will see you tonight, and the blue-haired one can join in too, should be fun. Anko yelled from down the hallway. Naruto and Hinata blushed deeply. You never thought you would have fangirls, did you, Naruto-kun? Tsunade teased. I even think Shizune might be one. Shizune blushed at this. Shadow clones might even make it more fun. Anko yelled again from down the hall. Geez, she only has one thing on her mind, doesn't she? Naruto asked incredulously. Nope. Killing that makes two. Anko said gently from the door entrance. Look, I know you had it rough, kid. I did too. Having Orochimaru as a sensei didn't exactly make for a good impression on the village. Anko said in an almost hurt voice. I use both as tool to deal with the hurt like you use the happy idiot act. Naruto looked at Anko and saw not the psycho woman but another hurt soul like him. I will think about it but not anytime soon. Naruto replied to her unasked question. Anko immediately perked up. Works for me, and if he has as much stamina in bed that he has outside of it, I will be a happy woman. Naruto blanched at this statement. What? Old enough to kill? Means you are old enough to. Anko stated with a smile as she left a blushing Naruto and Hinata, who both considered the implications of Anko's statement. Naruto whispered into Hinata's ear. No way. I can barely handle just one girl, adding more to the mix would just confuse me. I wanted to be the center of attention but I am not sure I could handle more than one girlfriend and eventual wife. Naruto explained as Hinata blushed. Hinata leaned in and whispered into his ear. I will make sure you are happy, Naruto-kun. Remember, you do not have to accept any of the offers of marriage. Hinata gulped and then sighed. Not even mine. Naruto turned to her in surprise. Why wouldn't I accept it? Naruto quietly asked. Hinata sighed and smiled gently. We will discuss this later, Naruto-kun. Hinata gently kissed him on the lips and then the forehead. Tsunade noticed the conversation and stood. Hana, I have something to show you and would like your opinion. Naruto, can you accompany us? Anko, take a load off and rest. Naruto-kun and Hinata-chan have some things to discuss. Tsunade left the room with almost everyone in tow. Naruto-kun, rest now, we will talk when we wake up. Hinata gently ordered Naruto as she slipped under the covers with him and snuggled up to him. Both fell quickly asleep. Interesting, I would say either a lizard or a fish hybrid, poor girl. Does she have gill slits? Hana inquired. Not from what we can find. We have even run water over her neck in the off chance they are there. She appears to have fully developed lungs but the X-rays and MRI scans have revealed no gills. Hinata-chan has examined her and her chakra network is advanced enough that she could work as a genin in the field. Also, the scales do not seem to dry out like you would expect a fish to. Shizune stated as she and Hana went over the report on the patient. Hana moved to the next patient. Female, apparent age 14, several scars and heel marks, no other distinguishing marks. Apparent skin grafts from other donors, possibly from Kekkei Genkai donors. According to Hinata-chan, her chakra network is in shambles, and there's no possibility for recovery, but she could lead a normal life as a civilian. Hana read from the chart as they continued on to the third patient. This one is an interesting case. Female, 17, Uchiha, she was thought to have been lost on a mission before the Uchiha massacre 4 years ago. She was listed as a Chunin at the time. Her chakra network is fine and we believe her Sharingan is fully developed. She is listed as perfect specimen for a breeder in Orochimaru's records, by a medic named Karen. She should be waking before the others and we should keep an eye on her for the time being. Shizune commented as she noticed the girl's hand move. Hana, go get Tsunade, I think that she is waking up. Hana quickly left the room. Okay, we will have to wait for your period to be over so that we can give you a full exam. Also, I want you to join Naruto-kun and Hinata-chan in their medical studies. Shall we go check on Haku-kun? Tsunade asked as Naruto blushed and nodded agreement. They entered Haku's room to see his eyes open and smiling at the two that entered his room. Hello, Naruto-chan. Is this Tsunade-sama? Tsunade nodded her answer. It is an honor to meet you, and thank you for healing me. I hope Naruto-kun isn't too put out by me being here in Konoha. Tsunade threw her head back in a hearty laugh. Son, we are not in Konoha. Naruto-kun was exiled and I decided to go with him. If that village did not appreciate him, then I say to hell with them. Tsunade commented. Haku wore a shocked look on his face. Naruto-kun is alright, isn't he? For the most part, he was injured and is recovering from wounds received when Sasuke Uchiha ran away from the village. Naruto-kun was the one to bring him back, and was exiled for his troubles. Tsunade replied. Naruto walked over to Haku and hugged him gently, and then she gently kissed him on the cheek. What was that for? Haku asked with a blush and a confused look on his face. Naruto looked up and gave her most innocent look she could muster. Just because I am happy to see you up again. I am happy too, but also a little confused. You are a clone of Naruto and a kiss would mean. Haku could not quite complete his thought out loud. Nope. I may be a clone, but Naruto-Nisan is a boy and I am most definitely a girl. Naruto replied with a smile and a blush. Haku blushed profusely. That would mean that you saw me. Yep. Don't worry too much, I promise I will continue to give you gentle sponge baths whenever you like, Haku-kun, Naruto said Haku's name seductively as Tsunade laughed. Now none of that, Naruto. He has just gone through major surgery and is still missing a lung. If we can work on the gene splicing we might be able to rebuild your lung, Haku. Until then you are to take it easy, doctor's orders. Tsunade stated gently. Now for our love-struck friend. Tsunade indicated she was talking about Naruto, who just blushed. Nice to know that you are actually female and your feeling were not wrong or just different from Naruto-kun's. Haku looked confused as he looked between the two females. Feelings? What feelings are you talking about? Naruto at least has a crush on you, Haku. Her heart is in your hands, so don't break it. Tsunade both warned and teased Haku. Haku blushed and then looked at Naruto with gently, almost loving eyes. How could I break the heart of a girl who took such loving care of me for so long? He lifted his left arm and wrapped around Naruto as she blushed and returned the hug. Naruto, he has to know, Tsunade stated impatiently. Naruto wore a sad puppy look on her face. No what? Haku asked. Please don't be afraid, Haku-kun. Naruto pleaded with Haku as he nodded. Naruto released the henge showing her tail and ears. Haku laughed gently at Naruto who began to pout. Is that what you are worried about? Cute ears, and a tail. Wait a second, a tail? What is going on? Haku asked, worried for Naruto's health. Tsunade sighed as she sat down in a chair next to the bed. This all comes back to Naruto and his guest. Haku asked as he again hugged Naruto. Yes, Naruto is a Jinchuriki, the Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed demon Kyuubi. Well, as you know, Naruto has a way with shadow clones. Mix that with some of Naruto's blood, Kyuubi's chakra, and a demon that wants to add some chaos into the world, and you get Naruto. She is truly a near-human female, and, no, I am not trying to be insulting. She has a small part of her genetic code that is part demon. She would in some small way qualify as a Hanyu or half-demon but only has a small amount of demon DNA, that being the genetic code that makes her female as opposed to male. The result is her having those fox-like features. She does not have normal ears but the ones on the top of her head. The tail is connected to the spine and can lie flat on her back. If you are into bloodlines, she has a few. One is the fox features, which more than likely will be passed down to her children, her large chakra capacity, and regeneration. Tsunade explained the situation carefully. I have a bloodline too, just like Naruto-chan. You do not hold it against me, do you? Haku asked with a worried look on his face. No, I don't, as I carry the Mokuden bloodline within me, but mine is dormant, as it only shows up in males of my family. Tsunade reassured Haku. Haku sighed in relief as he heard her words. Suddenly Hana ran into the room and looked straight at Naruto. Okay, now that is different. Tsunade-sama, the Uchiha girl is waking up. Naruto, drop the henge and come along. Hana ordered as she ran back towards the Uchiha's room. Naruto looked at Haku and rolled her eyes. She jumped up, then turned and gently hugged Haku. I'll be right back, Naruto said seductively, and Haku blushed at her comment. Naruto turned and left with Tsunade. He is going to be okay, isn't he? She asked with deep concern in her voice. Tsunade smiled and sighed as they continued to the room they needed to get to. Yes, he will be okay. I also want both you and him to do the medical training also. I am sure he has good chakra control, and you know that you have less chakra and more control than Naruto, so if you both work on control, Tsunade thought out loud. Then my lesser chakra might add to his control. Naruto concluded for Tsunade as she nodded agreement. I am not sure how you liking Haku and him liking Hinata will pan out at this point in time, especially if you share the experiences of shadow clones. Tsunade pondered out loud. Hana commented as Naruto and Tsunade entered the room. I told you to disengage that henge, Naruto. It isn't a henge, but I can re-engage the other one. Naruto replied as she reverted back to human form. Oh, was Hana's only response. The girl in the bed opened her eyes slowly. Her face went from serene to fear instantly as she saw the IV in her arm. I will not be a slave to Orochimaru. She croaked out. Easy, child. Tsunade replied in a soothing voice. Orochimaru left you for dead and we saved you. I am Tsunade Senju of the Sannin. The girl visibly relaxed. She then took the glass of water offered by Naruto, who smiled gleefully at the Uchiha girl. Hi, my name is Naruto. What is yours? The girl drank the water quickly, then offered the glass to Naruto, who then filled the glass again. You drink too much and you will have to go pee. That is if you don't already have to. Naruto commented as the girl's eyes went wide. You need to pee, don't you? Naruto asked as the girl nodded. Okay ladies, let's get her to the bathroom. The ladies helped the Uchiha to the bathroom to allow her to relieve herself. Afterwards they helped her back to her bed. Thank you very much, my name is Ayane Uchiha. Ayane stated weakly. She then looked at Tsunade. 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 Tsunade nodded as she finished tucking Ayane back into her bed. What do you remember? Ayane blushed. Well, I don't remember being this tall, for one. Also, I had just been promoted to Chunin and would soon be put into the police force under Lord Fugaku. Tsunade tensed at that name. I am sorry, Sannin-sama. Did I offend you with naming my clan head? Not really, but he has been dead for a few years now, about 4 now. Tsunade lied. I see. Did any of my clan survive? Ayane inquired. I was 12 last time I remember, but cousin Itachi was training me some, but his little annoyance of a brother would always get in our way of talking. Itachi told me that we might be married if Wait died 4 years ago. Yes, you have been a captive of Orochimaru for nearly 5 years. We found you here and brought you out of hibernation, so to speak. Your muscles have atrophied, and your mind is about 5 years behind your body. You are a beautiful girl of 17. Also, there are a few things we need to talk about. Tsunade stated with a serious voice as Ayane nodded. Your clan was destroyed by one person about 4 years ago, only one, the murderer, and his brother survived. Who are they? I will kill them both. Ayane stated with much vigor. Whoa there, you want to kill Itachi Oi and Sasuke Tem? Tsunade asked with a smile on her face. What do you mean Itachi Oi and Sasuke Oi? Ayane asked, confused, and wondered just what was going on. Hana, Naruto-chan, will you both please leave us, as I have several things that have to be discussed with Ayane here. Tsunade ordered as both Hana and Naruto bowed and left the room and headed back to check on Haku. Tsunade sat on the bed beside Ayane and took her hand. What I am going to tell you, does not leave this room, do I make myself clear? Tsunade told her with her eyes looking very stern. Sure, Tsunade-sama. I understand. Ayane nodded acknowledgement. I am, at least for a little bit longer, the Hokage of Konoha. I came across some information that was only known by a few of the council and the Hokage. The elders of Konoha ordered the Uchiha put to the sword for sedition. Tsunade paused as Ayane gasped. The true irony is that they forged the Hokage's orders and had Itachi do the deed. What he didn't know was that the order was not valid, even though he could not bring himself to kill his brother. Does Itachi-kun live? Ayane implored. Yes, he does, and he works for an organization that is bent on hurting my cousin, Naruto. Tsunade stated bluntly. Do you mean the Kyuubi boy that the rest of the clan hated? I know Itachi-kun, I know liked him very much. Ayane asked. Tsunade raised an eyebrow. What do you mean he liked Naruto-kun? And how do you know about Kyuubi? Ayane got a distant look in her eyes. Well, Itachi-kun would tell me stories about his job of protecting the village pariah. He used to say that the boy was more than everyone thought he was. He had so much potential. I sort of got to feel sorry for how they treated the boy. As for knowing about the Kyuubi, the whole clan other than Sasuke Dobi was told to either kill the boy or stay away from him, for he had the Kyuubi sealed within him. The Uchiha have a history with Kyuubi. She is the progenitor of our bloodline from our Hyuga ancestors. Ayane covered her mouth as she felt she had spoken too freely. That was what we guessed in the Senju clan. Please continue. Tsunade prodded. Ayane nodded. Itachi told me before I left on the mission that I was captured on, that he loved me. The council had asked for my team to go to the rice country to investigate some missing people for the daimyo there. Ayane's eyes both showed betrayal and admiration as she sighed. So Orochimaru captured you and then put you in a tank to mature. He apparently wanted you for breeding purposes. Oh, and you can find out for yourself if Naruto-kun is as good as Itachi told you. Oh, and thank you for filling in some of the holes in the reports I have. I am guessing that Itachi agreed when he found out that the Fugaku had said that your missing was not reason enough to mount a search operation. The council used that against him so that he would kill the clan. Tsunade's smile softened as she looked at Ayane. You must understand that he was made a traitor when he didn't kill his brother Sasuke. That boy is a thorn in so many people's sides, it is ridiculous. Now please get some rest. I will be down the hall checking on my cousin Naruto-kun. Please allow his sister, Naruko-chan, to help you with meeting him. He has a problem with the Uchiha to some extent and would love to see someone who did not hate him or want to kill him. Also, our little discussion is to be kept in the strictest confidence until I am ready to reveal it to all. Ayane nodded as she laid her head back on the pillow and fell asleep. Tsunade entered Haku's room to find Naruto asleep on Haku's bed, nuzzled up to his right side with his arm wrapped around her, both sleeping contently. Guess everyone is somewhat happy. I wonder where Hana went off to. Tsunade thought as she moved between the rooms and checked on the patients. She came upon Naruto's room where Hinata's clothes were on the floor along with Naruto's clothes. She did a quick inventory and found that their underwear was missing from the cluttered clothing that lay strewn around the room. Guess they are getting along just fine. Just as long as they have some clothes on, it should be fine and Hiashi won't kill him. Guess this is so that Anko doesn't bother them. Naruto-kun still has to ask for Hinata's hand first, though I think he won't say no, even though Hinata basically proposed to him. I think I will send a messenger to Hiashi. Tsunade found Hana in the mess hall feeding her dogs. She turned to greet Tsunade with a wave. I am guessing that Naruto-kun is going to turn the heirs of Konoha down on our marriage proposals. Hana commented more than asked. Tsunade chuckled and then sat down beside Hana. I am not so sure about that. One heir might get him at least. Hana sighed and then laughed hard. Yeah, like any of us had a chance with him to begin with. She's a lucky girl. Yes, and no, she never was mean to him and loved him from the start. All that along with timing gave her to him heart and soul. So why did the clans think that Naruto would marry them? Tsunade questioned. Well, Mom guessed that the council would attempt to bind Sasuke Tem to the village by using the Clan Restoration Act and marry him off to the clans with daughters. We talked to those heads and they agreed they would rather have the pariah as a son-in-law that was loyal rather than one from a known family of traitors. Better a loyal pup from an unknown bitch than one that had good breeding but has a habit of biting the hands that feed it. Hana commented. I see what you mean. With my adoption of Naruto into the Senju, Sasuke will be up against the ringer. Tsunade stated with a distant look and a smirk. Ha! The council is plotting to make Sasuke Tem into a breeding factory. I figure they wanted him to sleep with all of us to see if he could produce some variants of the Sharingan. Loyal with the Inuzuka, Byakugan hybrid with Lady Hinata, Mind Walkers with Ino-chan, and Genjutsu experts with Yakumo-chan. I will not have it. Even if Naruto-kun turns us down, I am willing to join your little group and bring the others here. That is if you will have us. Hana said with a pleading look in her eyes. Tsunade looked at Hana and began to contemplate what was going on, the near desertion of Konoha's clans from the village, one small group at a time. Tsunade shook off her weariness at the possibility that Konoha might fall and the destruction it might cause around the shinobi world. She then sighed and began to speak. Listen, Hana, I have no problem with you joining the group, but I also want to have an ear in Konoha. We have a couple more days before Naruto's exile is set and we are out here permanently. I want you to take some documents to Jiraiya for me. When you return, I want you to be my liaison to Konoha until things get really bad. If you need, you can have Sum arrange a marriage within the clan for your protection. For those who can't be protected from the council, I will write up a protection order for them. I also want several people for you to keep in contact with. Tsunade said as she led Hana to her makeshift office. A yell came ringing throughout Naruto's room. Hey kid, wake up. Naruto woke with a start and pulled the sheets with him. He saw an orange and black toad sitting on the sheets before him. Hey kid, get lucky. Naruto looked confused by the question. Gamakichi looked disappointed for a second, then smiled broadly. What happened to the pink-haired banshee? I thought she was your girlfriend. Gamakichi said as he put his left pinky up in the air. Naruto groggily looked around and replied to Gamakichi. Hey Gamakichi, what are you doing here? Naruto noticed he was missing clothing and that Hinata was only in her underwear and bra. He quickly pulled the covers back over Hinata and himself. He did notice he was wearing his boxers and let out a sigh of relief. Naruto's face then wore a look of surprise. What do you mean by saying that the pink-haired banshee was my girlfriend? Well, you seem to like her so much. Gamakichi responded with a smile as if he knew something. Not anymore, that witch beat me while I was in the hospital. Naruto recounted and then smiled a big grin while looking at the sleeping Hinata. I like Hinata-chan better. She loves me and I think I love her too. Gamakichi nodded and smiled. Glad to hear that, kid. I got a message from Pops. Naruto laid back and Hinata snuggled onto his chest and smiled in her sleep. Okay, what does the old toad want? And I also have a question for him too. Well, the Tem demanded to be trained by Ero Sennin. I do like that title, I'm glad you came up with it. But back to the message, Pops says that you and Jiraiya are now the only contract holders of the Toad summoning contract and it is to become a family contract for the both of you. So what is your question? Gamakichi inquired. I want to know if I can sign other summoning contracts with some of the other summons. Tsunade Obasan wants me to sign the slug contract but wanted me to check with your dad first. Naruto stated. Will do. Gamakichi responded and then disappeared in a puff of smoke. Naruto, Hinata, Naruko, and Haku spent the next few days reading about anatomy. Naruto and Naruko had the hardest times as their learning had been hindered by the teachers at the academy. This caused Hana, Shizune, Haku, and especially Hinata and Tsunade to become very angry at the instructors at the academy. Naruko and Hinata worked on chakra control as Naruto and Haku healed. The other two girls woke up and began to explore. The first room they came upon was Naruto's and seemed to want to stay by his side. Naruto was a little bit disturbed by all the attention he seemed to be getting from the females of the human species. He did make an effort to get to know them though. The youngest was named Hio, and found that she could tease Naruto about his name and he would tease her about her name. Hio of course means dried fish, and one of the meanings of Naruto name was fish cakes. The other girl who would just watch the 10-year-old and the 13-year-old both act like they were 8 was named Chimera. She mostly kept to herself but stayed close to Naruto for some unknown reason. Tsunade suggested that Naruto accepted them as they were so they could be at ease around him. He had a way with people and Tsunade could not explain it. By the end of the week Naruto was nearly at 100% and ready to train. Tsunade suggested a mission. Tsunade took Naruto, Naruto and Hinata as a team to go and check on a missing caravan from the Land of Honey. The mission went wrong from the start. The team got stuck in what appeared to be a haunted castle. Naruto freaked out on several occasions only to actually figure out that the castle was actually a summons. Using Hinata's Byakugan they located the summoning scroll and made their way up to the scroll. Naruto signed the scroll as Naruto opened a hole for the team to escape. Naruto politely excused the summons. The team was then thanked by the caravan and they would send payment to Wave when they returned home for saving them. The team returned only to find Neji waiting for them at the entrance of the bunker. He informed them that Anko was now declared an independent nin as were Naruto, Hinata, Shizune, Tsunade and the Anbu team. He also informed them that Tsunade had been replaced by Jiraiya as Hokage, much to his annoyance. Tsunade had the group seal up the bunker and then everybody headed to Wave. Thanks to a couple of shadow clones from Naruto's chakra control skyrocketed. On the way to Wave Naruto was able to finally make a one-handed Rasengan. It did take him 3 whole minutes to do it but he could finally do it. Hio and Chimera both began to look towards Naruto as a brother, while they saw Hinata and Naruto as sisters. Naruto finally had a family and was happy beyond his wildest dreams. Naruto and the group saw the bridge and were awed by its size and engineering. The name of the bridge also caused several members to be even more impressed. Tsunade actually began to question the reports she had read on the mission. Naruto-kun, I have a question about what happened here in Wave. Why did they name the bridge after you and not Sasuke? An older man walked out from entrance arch of the bridge. I can answer that question. Hello Naruto, how are you doing? Naruto's face lit up. Hey old man, I am okay. How are Inari and Tsunami? Tazuna smiled and put his hand on Naruto's shoulder. It is good to see you again Naruto, Inari and Tsunami are doing fine. I am glad you got out of that day glow orange suit. It yell, I am here, kill me now. Tazuna teased. Naruto frowned at the comment. Hey, I like orange, but I understand what you mean. Tazuna turned to Tsunade. I am Tazuna the bridge builder. This young man is a hero. Tazuna tightened his grip on Naruto's shoulder to point out that he was the person he wanted to designate as a hero. How is he a hero? Tsunade asked, wanting to hear the real story. He brought hope back to this country and he also helped in defeating Gato. Without him we would not be here. Tazuna bragged. Naruto blushed. I didn't do that much, I just helped Inari and Zabuza see the truth. Naruto's face went downcast at the memory. I am sorry Haku. Haku smiled weakly as Naruto squeezed his hand for reassurance. It is alright Naruto-kun. You saved my life and gave me more precious people to protect. For that I am eternally grateful. Tazuna chuckled. So why are you visiting kid? The village abandoned him. Hinata replied sadly. Tazuna stopped dead in his tracks. How could a great village like Konoha abandon a hero like Naruto, here? Tsunade lowered her head in shame. The village council declared that because he injured a fugitive comrade that he should either be executed or exiled from the village. I as Hokage could not stand and have my favorite cousin killed. So I wrote up the exile papers, asked a few friends to join and left the village to become independent shinobi. Would your village like to host our group? Tsunade asked with a smirk. Tazuna's eyes widened and his jaw dropped. It took a couple minutes before he actually answered. Would we? You bet we would. Inari would love to have his Nissan back. There should be just enough room in the house for you all. So you will stay with us for the time being. Until you can find a place of your own and set up shop. The walk to Tazuna's house was nice and quiet until Tazuna asked a simple question. Why are you so quiet Naruto? You used to be a loud mouth. Tazuna smirked at the jab. Naruto became livid. What do you mean I was a loud mouth? Naruto yelled his rebuttal. Anko laughed at Naruto's complaint. I see what you mean. Anko retorted. Naruto grumbled as everyone just either laughed or giggled. Hinata giggled but also wrapped her arms around Naruto and kissed him on the cheek. She then hugged his arm the rest of the way to Tsunade's house. Tsuna opened the door only to yell, "Hey Tsunami, look what I found just hanging around the bridge." Tsunami turned, stared and dropped the plate she had been washing. She looked Naruto in the eyes and began to cry. She ran up to Naruto and wrapped him into a loving hug. She shifted from a hug to holding his face in her hands and looked directly into his eyes. "Is that really you, Naruto-kun?" Naruto nodded as she again wrapped him in a loving embrace and gave him a motherly kiss on the forehead. "We have missed you, Naruto-kun. Inari will be so happy you came back to visit." Naruto had returned the hug but held a sad look on his face. "It's not a visit. It is a little more permanent," Naruto whispered but still audible to all present. Tsunami released the embrace enough to look him in his sad eyes. "What do you mean?" The village apparently turned on him. Tsuna answered. "That is terrible," Tsunami stated as she again hugged Naruto. "So Naruto-kun, who are your friends?" Tsunade came forward with a kind smile. "I am Tsunade Senju, Naruto's cousin, Hinata Hyuga, his fiancé, Shizune, my first apprentice, Anko, special Jonin, Naruko, Naruto's sister, Haku, soon-to-be brother-in-law." Naruko and Haku blushed at Tsunade's statement. Tsunade continued the introductions. "This is Hio, Chimera, Ayane, and an Anbu squad. I am the former Hokage of Konoha." Tsunami looked confused but just then a child entered the room. "Whoa, who are all these people?" Suddenly Inari recognized one individual. "Naruto Nisan," Inari yelled as he jumped at Naruto and wrapped his arms around him. He in childlike glee began to question Naruto in rapid succession without ever giving Naruto a chance to answer. "Is it really you? Why are you here? Did you bring me anything? Who's the girl? Is she your girlfriend? What happened to the pink bimbo? What about the emo jerk? Can you teach me to be a cool ninja like you? How about Mr. Blindfold? How long are you staying? Is this a visit or have you come to live with us?" Tsunami finally stopped him with a gentle hand on his shoulder. "I am sure Naruto-kun will answer all your questions, in time. Give him a chance to answer at least, Inari." She then looked at Naruto. "So how long are you staying?" Tsunade cleared her throat. "We are independent shinobi and we're hoping to make wave our residence. So we may be here a while, especially if we set up shop here. We can bring even more commerce to your lands. We basically have 3 teams right now." Naruto looked at Tsunade like she was crazy. "What do you mean we have 3 teams?" Tsunade took a deep breath. "Well, first we have the Anbu team. Second we have a team of 1 special Jonin, 2 Chunin and a Genin. Third we have a reserve team consisting of a Sannin, her apprentice, an ice user, and an Uchiha, 2 of which are on medical leave." Tsunade said with a wink. Naruto blanched. "You mean our team leader and sensei is Anko?" Tsunade and Anko smirked at Naruto's reaction. "Yes, she is your team leader and she can be switched out with anyone from the Anbu team, Shizune or I as needed. Your team otherwise consists of Naruko-chan, Hinata-chan, and yourself. Do you have any questions?" Everyone shook their heads. "Okay Naruto, Naruko, Haku, and Hinata, time to hit the books while I help Tsunami with cleaning up." A round of ahs were heard. "No complaints, now get going." Shizune ordered as the 4 unsealed books from scrolls, sat at the table and began to read. Tsunade took Tsuna aside. "How much would it be to buy some land and build a compound on it?" Tsuna put his hand to his chin and thought about it. "How big a place are we talking about? I will need at least a dozen bedrooms, a couple sealed labs, several showers and baths. That is all I can think of right now, but I am sure there will be more. Oh yes, I need a place to set up a clinic and medical ward of at least 6 beds." Tsuna smiled. "A clinic would also be good for the village. You could charge for your services, and offer some free work too. If what I am thinking this through correct, you will have several doctors in training soon." So the clinic could be a learning one. I suggest we build you a compound on the outskirts of town and clinic in town so you can get away from the hassles of work at home. How does that sound? Tsunade smiled broadly as Tazuna noticed her finally begin so show the signs of exhaustion. That sounds great. Also, we will need a good size area of land that we are more or less going to destroy on a regular basis. I know of a good spot for the building, but it will take a month or two to build and get it ready. We can put you up until it is finished if you like. Tazuna offered. Tsunade thought about it. Only if you let us pay you rent for the rooms we use and help pay for the food. Deal. Tsunade offered her hand. Deal. Also, you should rest some tomorrow. Take a load off. I can tell when someone is about to fall apart. Tazuna took her hand, shook it and then pulled her into a hug. You are special to Naruto and thus are special to us. So we can't have you falling apart anytime soon. Tazuna smiled gently to Tsunade, who smiled appreciatively back. Ayane used her hand to mess up Naruto's hair as she walked by him at the table. So you are the Naruto-kun. Itachi-kun had such high praise for you. Naruto and Naruto both froze at the name of Itachi, was uttered. Ayane looked at Tsunade. She nodded her head. It's all right, Naruto-kun. I will not betray or hurt you. Naruto appeared to ease a little bit. I also hear that my cousin, Sasuke-chan, was not very nice to you. He will have to answer to me. As for Itachi-kun, next time we see him let me do the talking and you might be surprised. Naruto and Naruto both giggled at Sasuke being referred to by the chan suffix, but were surprised that Ayane wanted to talk to Itachi for them. Are you sure you're an Uchiha? Naruto questioned. Ayane chuckled as she sat across from Naruto. I am sure, but sometimes the clan questioned if I was. So did Sasuke-chan get his Sharingan to activate? Naruto saddened and looked away. Naruto spoke up for her brother. Yes, he now has all 3 tomos, thanks to him working over Naruto Nisan. He nearly killed him, now he is basking in the glory while he is being exiled. Seems like the traitor is living the high life to me. Naruto's face lit up. Not really, he isn't getting everything he wanted. From what I gathered from Gamakichi, Gamabunta and Ero Sanin put him in his place in front of the council. Naruto happily replied. Hinata, Naruto, Haku and Anko knew this, that the happy attitude was just an act on his part. He was very angry that he had to leave Konoha and might not be able to achieve his dream of being Hokage. Good, someone should put the Tem in his place. Ayane stated bluntly, catching everyone by surprise. I want the Kyuubi brat killed and his head on a pike. He denied me my new vessel. I need the Sharingan, and he denied me it. Send a force to find and destroy him. Now leave me Kabuto. Orochimaru demanded. His left eye showed his malice, being that he was covered in bandages and only his left eye was visible. As you wish, Orochimaru-sama, I will get right on that. There might be hope yet that Sasuke-kun comes anyways. Kabuto replied as Orochimaru's interests were piqued. He nodded for Kabuto to go on. Well, if what I heard is correct, the village is not giving him what he desires and he may just leave again to gain it. Shall I send an emissary to contact him so that he may still come to us? Orochimaru chuckled evilly. Yes, Kabuto, please make contact. We may yet be able to get him to come to us willingly, even though it will again be 3 years until I can take a host. Send them right away, and let him know that we still want him to come so that he can gain power from me. Kabuto bowed as he turned to leave. As you wish, Orochimaru-sama, so it will be done. Ebisu was very annoyed, yes, very annoyed. Fist he had been pulled from training Konohamaru and now he was forced to train Sasuke Uchiha. The council was becoming full of itself. The boy only wanted to just copy the jutsu, not learn anything about the jutsu. He just wanted to copy them. This just isn't done. To use a jutsu properly, you must understand when and where to use a jutsu, its weaknesses and the like. He tried to explain this to Sasuke several times, but he would not have it. At least Naruto would sit for an explanation and try to understand why he was doing what he was doing. Sure, he had several jutsu he could teach Sasuke, but they all had big glaring weaknesses. Shadow Clone had a weakness of chakra and mental exhaustion, which was funny that it wasn't in Sasuke's arsenal, as Ebisu was sure that he had had several opportunities to copy it from Naruto as his teammate. Also, his demands of only offensive jutsu and no defensive jutsu were preposterous. Sasuke, you need to learn when and where to use a jutsu. Being totally offensive will kill you instantly. You must have a balanced approach. Ebisu warned. Just give me the jutsu and stop prattling. I need to get stronger to beat him. Sasuke droned on. Ebisu sighed. I know you want to defeat your brother, but he understood the concept of attack and defense. If you can't understand that, I can't teach you. Even Naruto understood that I had something to offer him when I worked with him before the Chunin exams. Then give me your summon scroll. Sasuke demanded. Ebisu pushed his glasses back up to the bridge of his nose to calm down. I don't have one, and I wouldn't even let you if I did. They are creatures of trust, and you apparently could not earn the trust of the great Gamabunta. Sasuke growled. If that is all you're going to teach me, then we are done and you are relieved from teaching me. Sasuke replied and then whispered under his breath. That damn toad doesn't know who he was dealing with. Sasuke turned and walked from the training field with his Anbu escort. Naruto was walking to his room when he heard soft crying. He opened the door to Tsunade, Shizune and Anko's room. Tsunade was slumped over on her desk crying. She then noticed a hand touch her shoulder. She looked up and saw Naruto. She immediately embraced him in a hug. I am so sorry, Naruto-kun. I couldn't protect you and I had to make a choice between you and the village. I had to choose you. Naruto, not knowing what to do, just wrapped his arms around Tsunade and gently patted her on the back. Thank you, was all he could muster as a reply. About 20 minutes later, Tsunade had fallen asleep as Naruto had shifted her to her futon in a sleepy stupor. Good night, Aunt Tsunade, Naruto said quietly as he left the room, only to find most everyone standing in the hall. Each of the females gave Naruto a hug and left to their rooms in turn. Next to last was Ayane, who kissed him gently on the forehead. You are sweet. Don't ever change, Naruto-kun. Naruto blushed as Hinata took his hand and led him to their room that they shared with Hio. Hio smiled warmly from her futon to Naruto. Naruto-nisan is good. She then laid her head down and went quickly to sleep. You did a good thing for Tsunade-sama, Naruto-kun. Hinata stated as she kissed him gently on the lips. Now let's get ready for bed as we have a long day tomorrow, as Naruto has to create a shadow clone and has to help you assimilate the information. You both need to figure out how to filter the information so that your personalities do not merge or you get information you do not want. Hinata stated as she finished getting ready for bed. Naruto nodded as he also finished getting ready for bed. They laid down on the same futon and quickly fell asleep. The next day was bright and sunny. Naruto and Hinata went and changed into their outfits, as Naruto also changed. Tsunade interrupted everyone getting ready as she called out to the group. Okay everyone, we need to get everyone checked out for duty, as we will have some duty after we get the new house established. Now I want the males to line up and come into this room for Shizune to examine them. This is a full examination, so when you enter the room you are to fully, and I mean fully, disrobe and lay down on the table to be examined. Shizune and I will conduct this examination. This will happen after injuries on missions or once every few months. Now after the apprentices are trained you will have to be examined by the opposite to become accustomed to this, as Shizune and I will be quite tired after this. Sorry, ladies, if you feel uncomfortable with this, but it needs to happen. I assure you that Naruto-kun and Haku-kun will not do anything that isn't clinically necessary. Tsunade said, accentuating her meaning by cracking her knuckles, causing both males to swallow loudly, and nodded their acknowledgement to the threat. Naruto and Haku were led into a room with Shizune. Shizune pointed to a chair, and then to Haku, who then took a tablet from Shizune. She then nodded to Naruto, who looked confused. Naruto-kun, you need to disrobe now, she said. Naruto nodded but was slow to comply. Shizune then teased, would you prefer that I bring all the females in here to disrobe you, Naruto-kun? Naruto shook his head as images of Anko using a kunai danced through his head. He quickly disrobed. Shizune looked him over, then pulled out a tape measure and began to measure his height, his chest size and most all of his other measurements. Haku jotted the numbers down as she called them off. Okay, lay down. Face up if you like or face down, it does not matter to me, she said. Why doesn't it matter to you? Naruto asked. Shizune sighed and sat next to Naruto. Because Naruto-kun, when we are in here I am your doctor, not a woman gawking at a male. So now, both of you understand that you need to learn detachment when you do these examinations. I couldn't do my job if I wanted to gawk at all the guys I've seen. Also, knowing what you look like in your birthday suit doesn't let me know what you are like inside, and that is what counts, not the physical measurements, those are just the icing on the cake, so to speak. Now lay down and we will begin the diagnostic, she ordered. Shizune did several hand signs as Naruto watched, and Shizune then moved her hand over Naruto. It felt different than the usual diagnostic and she moved more slowly than she had before. She then said, interesting, Haku, add this to the notes. There is no scarring from previous injuries other than the ones from the fight with Sasuke Uchiha. Of note, Naruto has scarring on his chest and also his ribcage. His lung also has minor scarring where the new one and the old one are connected. There also appears to be scarring near the base of the neck between the 5th and 6th cervical vertebrae. Any other notes to report, Shizune-san? Haku asked. Shizune continued to examine Naruto until she hovered over his crotch. Naruto began to shift uneasily as she seemed to be concentrating. Naruto-kun, sit still, I will be done in minute, she ordered. Naruto settled down, but felt uneasy as her hand hovered over him. Her hand closed and the green chakra dissipated. She happily declared, Naruto is fully viable and should show no problem with having children. Okay, Naruto-kun, your turn to take the notes for Haku-kun. Also, Haku put down that he is still suffering from being malnourished and we should address this issue as soon as possible, Shizune ordered. Naruto gave her a funny look, then sat up and put his shorts back on as Haku disrobed. Naruto took the chair that Haku was in, took the notebook, and began to write down the information that Shizune told him to. Of note, Haku still has only one lung, but that should be rebuilt fully in a month or two, and Shizune also proclaimed Haku also viable for producing children. The other male exams went quietly without incident. Tsunade entered and looked at the boys only in their boxers and smiled. So, you figured you would put the patients at ease. Well, get dressed. We still have 2 more to finish with and the girls will be joining us for these examinations, Tsunade said. Naruto and Haku quickly put on their clothes, and readied themselves for the next 2 examinations. Ready, Shizune? You or me first? Tsunade inquired as Shizune opened her robe, much to the embarrassment of the boys. Tsunade frowned and said, stop it, boys, or I will have the girls do a follow-up examination of you right now. First, you will not look at her as a female, but as a patient. Second, you will honor her by not getting embarrassed by seeing her. The patient will be nervous enough without you showing that you don't have the ability to put a perverted thought aside to deal with the examination. Also, I am next, and I don't want to hear any complaints when I drop the genjutsu for the exam. Naruto swallowed loudly. Shizune disrobed as the boys steeled themselves to see a woman for nearly the first time. Shizune stood and waited for Tsunade to start the exam, as Naruto took the notebook to take down the notes on the exam. Both Haku and Naruto had that task, as it would give them a distraction from watching Tsunade measure Shizune and then moving her hand over her body. It was over with quickly enough, with the report that Shizune was also still able to bear children. Tsunade's exam took a little longer than expected, as it took a little bit for Naruto to adjust to both visages of a Tsunade, with and without her genjutsu. Tsunade explained that the reason for putting them in the uncomfortable situation was so that they would not freeze up if they had to deliver a baby, do surgery, or do an exam if one of the girls were not available. And it was possible that could happen, as there were her only apprentices. Tsunade and Shizune volunteered themselves first to make it easier for the others to trust the boys, as they would eventually be either nurses or doctors in their own right. Of surprising note, was that Tsunade could also bear children, despite being over 50. After the examinations were complete, Naruto was fighting to not say anything for fear of getting hit by Tsunade. While attractive for her age even without her genjutsu, she still did not excite the young men, being 13 and 14 respectively. Breakfast was served as the group went downstairs. Several eyes watched the house near the water, each aware of the other's presence. 4 groups sat and watched for several hours until the occupants began to leave the building, only to shift to a guard stance. Tsunade was not pleased, as it appeared that they were nearly surrounded but only from the shore and they had 3 civilians in the house. Come out now and show yourselves. I know there are at least 4 groups of you, Tsunade ordered. A group of rock shinobi walked out of the forest first near the trail to the house. A group of cloud shinobi including a blonde woman and a dark-skinned man with a large number of swords came out of the forest a little ways away from the rock shinobi. A group of mist shinobi exited on the other side of the rock shinobi. The rock and cloud shinobi groups both bowed to Tsunade and the group as they exited the forest. The mist shinobi looked on at Hinata with disgust in their eyes, as Naruto took a position in front of her. Naruto growled at the mist shinobi. They were taken aback by this reaction. The 4th group did not appear, but several kunai suddenly went straight at Naruto. All were blocked by Senbon, shuriken or kunai thrown from behind him. Naruto looked at those behind him as each appeared ready to fight and he even saw Anko licking her lips. You okay Gaki? Anko asked with actual concern in her voice, as Naruto nodded and turned back towards the guests and the unknown assailants. Suddenly sand erupted from that section of forest, only to show 4 figures being pushed out of the forest by the sand. Let us go you demon. One of the masked figures yelled back into the sand. I think not. I need only your heads for identification, so this is goodbye for attacking my friend. Sand burial. Gaara appeared on a tree limb as he closed his hand and crushed the 4 from the forest. Hey blonde, long time no see. Tamari teased, as she appeared next to her brother. Please, Gaara-sensei, slow down so we can keep up, a brown-haired girl stated as she jumped on the branch next to Gaara panting heavily. Moments later another girl appeared next to Tamari also panting. Looks like we need to work on your stamina girls, Tamari commented to the 2 sand kunoichi who just nodded in agreement. Both the cloud and the rock contingent began to leak demonic killing intent. The girls standing next to Gaara and Tamari both collapsed and had to be held upright. Tsunade knew the situation was going downhill and fast. So Gaara and Tamari of the desert, to what do we owe the pleasure of your company? Tsunade asked, hoping that she could refocus attention away from the Ikibi Jinchuriki. The Council of Suna is most displeased with the exile of Naruto Uzumaki, and thus has proposed a marriage so that he could be protected by Suna, Gaara stated in a monotone voice. Naruto looked up at his friend confused. Marriage? To whom? He asked, scratching the back of his head. Tamari smirked at the question. Me of course silly. It isn't like there would be many that Gaara-kun here would agree for me to be married to. She admitted, stating the obvious. Naruto gently grabbed Hinata's hand. I'm sorry, Tamari-chan, but I am spoken for, but thanks for the offer, he replied politely. Tamari just chuckled and smiled at Naruto. You don't know what you're going to miss, she said as she laughed. Naruto shook his head. I'm sorry Tamari-chan, but I barely know what I'm doing with one who I have ignored for years. What would I do with another? He asked. Nearly everyone face-faulted except for Tamari, who jumped down next to Naruto, in between both him and Hinata and whispered, you could always share. Both Naruto and Hinata turned beet red. You could just marry us both, and I could just live the life of luxury and not have to worry about being a real wife, Tamari added, which caused both to turn even brighter red. Tamari chuckled to herself at how easy it was to tease these two. She decided to put on the finishing touch, and added, I would only be in your bed for one night, and after that, if I had a kid so be it. If not, you would never have to return to my bed again. If you were daring, we could have a threesome with your girlfriend too. It might make for an interesting night. Naruto and Hinata finally hit the edge with that statement and passed out. Tamari smiled as she rubbed her hands in satisfaction, and giggled, that was too easy. Shizune turned the attention away from fainting pair. These were from Konoha. I believe they were root agents, not actual Anbu, Tsunade-sama, Shizune declared as she examined the 4 dead bodies. Tsunade nodded her acknowledgement. We will take into consideration the marriage proposal from Suna. So what do Mist, Rock, and Cloud want? Tsunade asked. One of the Mist shinobi stepped forward with a sneer on his face. Tsunade of the Sannin, we wish to offer you a place in our village for all of your people except for those with bloodlines, the man said. He then continued to glare at Hinata. Tsunade caused everyone to jump when she burst out laughing. The startled Mist Nin asked, what did I say that is so funny? I am of a family of bloodline holders. You ask me to join your village, but don't look to see if I have one myself. I possess one, but it is dormant. So if I were to have any children, you would kill them, so I decline your offer, Tsunade stated as she continued to laugh. You would mock me, a Junin, bearing an offer from the Mizukage, and telling me of a preposterous idea of an old hag like you having children. The man asked. He then added, don't make me. The man found himself flying at the sand that had killed the Konoha root agents and Tsunade standing in his spot. Tsunade turned to Gaara. Gaara, if you'll do the honors. She asked, as she smiled sadistically. The sand opened up as the man entered a newly formed hole in it. Gladly. Sand burial. Gaara proclaimed as the sand flattened, and a sickening crunch was heard. Tamari sat and watched as she placed both Naruto's and Hinata's heads on her lap with the help of Anko. Tsunade turned to the remaining Mist shinobi. Any more of you wish to insult me? She asked threateningly. All 3 shook their heads. Annoyed at their wasting her time, she ordered, then get out of my sight. Tsunade swept her hand as she told them to leave. She turned to the rock shinobi. So what does our former greatest enemy want with me? A red-haired man stood and walked towards Tsunade and then bowed. Tsunade of the Senju, former Godime Hokage of Konoha, Sannin named so by Hanzo of Aim. We of Iwa ask that you take us on as vassals for a while so that we can prove our village is worth you coming to establishing a clan with us. If at any time you wish us gone, we will leave you and your part in peace. I am Rushi, retired Junin and Jinchuriki of Iowa, the man explained. Tsunade raised an eyebrow. We can discuss this later, but for the moment you are welcome as long as you guarantee the safety of my blonde friends over there, Tsunade said, as she pointed at Naruto and Naruko. You have my word as a shinobi that they are safe with my men and I, Rushi promised as he bowed again. 2 from Kumo stepped forward, the blonde female and the dark-skinned man with swords, but they seemed to be bickering. Kurabi, do not insult her with your lyrics. Your brother, the Raikage, told me to do the talking as you seem to keep on getting people mad at you, the woman argued. Tsunade raised an eyebrow at the approaching pair, and asked, so what is it that Cloud wants? Naruto and Hinata began to stir. Both grabbed Temari's knee and noticed they were on a black pillow, her battle kimono to be exact. So you 2 sleepy heads decide if you want a threesome. Tamari teased. Yugito and Kurabi both bowed before Tsunade. Honorable Tsunade Senju-sama. We of Cloud wish to extend an invitation to Kumo where we guarantee the protection of all your party. The Raikage wishes to speak with you regarding you and your reason for leaving Konoha. You have as long as you like to decide on accepting this offer, as both Kurabi and I, Yugito ni, have been told to stay by your side no matter what you decide. The other 2 of our team are going to head back with you. Immediate decision, the woman, now known as Yugito, said, still not raising her head. Great, now I have added 10 mouths to feed, including 4 more Jinchuriki. The cage must think that I'm really important. I know I would be good leverage politically against Konoha, but I wouldn't want to be that much of a burden to them no matter how much it has cost me. No, I'm here for Naruto-kun, and I will do what is right for him and Hinata-chan, Tsunade thought to herself, and then she said, I will have to take some time to figure out what I want to do. As for now, we need to make sure that all parties that are going to stay here can get along. First off, Iwa Shinobi, can all of you get along with those from the village that produced the yellow flash? Rushi nodded, as did another, but a third seemed conflicted and the fourth shook his head. Tsunade pointed at the two. I don't need anyone who can't control themselves, so you two can head back to Iowa, she ordered. Rushi stood and turned, he pointed at the two and nodded, both left the scene quickly. It is as you wish, Tsunade-sama. Rushi turned back around and returned to the bowing position. You of Kumo, Tsunade said, bringing the attention of the Cloud Shinobi to her. She pointed at Hinata, and explained, that girl, Hinata is of the Hyuga line and is the betrothed to my cousin Naruto Senju Uzumaki. If any of you can't keep from thinking of brining her to your village to use her as a breeding factory for Kekkei Genkai, you can just leave now. She is protected by my cousin, and our entire group. I would also advise not crossing Naruto, as Gaara here can agree with me that he would cross the planet to avenge anything ill that happened to her. Tsunade turned to Gaara, who just nodded in agreement. Tamari spoke at that point. I also name her as my sister, Hinata of the Desert. The Council of Suna has given us considerable leeway to name whatever you want to have you allied with our village, if not become part of it, Tamari proclaimed. She then continued, the idea for the marriage was both the council's and mine. So whether he accepts or not, both of them are under the protection of Suna. Temari's comment caused Tsunade to smile, as she knew that the Suna contingent could be trusted. Kurabi stood up and smiled. She is free and it is all right by me, he replied, his smile turning into a grin similar to Naruto's, though the sunglasses gave him a different look. Yugito scowled. I told you to zip it, she said, slightly annoyed. Yo toots, I'm the one of us with 8 so you don't have to get irate, Kurabi stated with a smile as most everyone groaned. He looked around, his shoulders slumped, and he said, so everyone's a critic. Yugito turned to the other two Kumo shinobi, and nodded as they left. I have sent them with a message that you are still deciding what to do, Tsunade-sama, she explained. Tsunade sighed. How did the information get to the villages so quick? And how did you find me so quickly? She asked, slightly confused. I know Jiraiya-sama sent a message to Suna as soon as you left, along with the possible locations of where you might go, Tamari answered. Rushi stood and smiled. Iwa has spies in Konoha and they reported your departure. The Tsuchikage figured you would head this direction, so we hurried and followed the root idiots, Rushi answered while pointing at the dead root agents. Yugito smirked. The Raikage has spies, but also knows that the Mizukage is in league with Akatsuki. So we followed them. We knew they would screw up and try to insult you, as a holder of a bloodline. We were not informed that you would be expecting a child though. Congratulations, she said, getting that twinkle in her eye that all women get upon hearing about pregnancy. Tsunade laughed, as did most of the former Konoha shinobi. It will be a couple years before I will be expecting, but thank you for your support in that area, Tsunade thanked Yugito. Shizune blushed, as she knew she was going to be the surrogate mother for Tsunade's child. I think we have a few too many here for the house, and the village doesn't have an inn just yet. How are we going to house them? She asked nervously. Tazuna thought for a minute. Well, it isn't the rainy season, and the weather is quite nice right now, so if they want to camp on the beach I have no problem with that, as the house is near maximum capacity for people, he said. Tsunade looked around as everyone nodded to this arrangement. We can house you when we get the compound house built, Tsunade stated. I can help with making the foundation if you like, Rushi stated, as everyone looked at him like he was crazy. What? I have fire and earth affinity and thus I can use and make magma. That, when cooled, should make a good foundation. And kill all the plants in the area, Anko commented with a snicker. What was that girl? Rushi queried. Anko snickered as she put her fists on her hips. What? Are you hard of hearing? She asked. Rushi shook his head, as he knew this was going to be interesting. No, but your outfit draws away the attention from your statements, Rushi stated with a smirk. Tsunade shook her head. Enough. We all need to get along, so no more quibbling, she ordered. Rushi laughed at this. I thought she and I were just getting to know each other, he chuckled. Tsunade laughed. So you two were engaged in foreplay in front of all of us? She asked. Both Rushi and Anko blushed at the comment. Tsunade pinched the bridge of her nose, and said to the group, okay, enough playing around, set up camp now. Tazuna, I need you to get to work on that project we talked about. I need the dorms and kitchen built first. Tamari brushed both Naruto's and Hinata's hair as they both lay on her lap. We could have so much fun, you two, Tamari said with a smirk, as both Naruto and Hinata blushed. Tsunade walked over, knelt down, and suggested, you could always take the route I'm taking. Tamari perked up at this comment. I'm in luck. You're into older women, she exclaimed. Tsunade giggled as Naruto blushed. No, Naruto-kun here agreed to allow me to use artificial insemination to have a couple children. You could do that too so that others would think that you're married, she offered. Tamari huffed. I wanted to do it at least once. I don't want to be a virgin when I have children, she pouted. Hinata reached out and touched Naruto's hand. It would be up to Naruto-kun if that were to happen, but we can discuss it when we're older. I have first dibs though, Hinata stated as Naruto nodded. Back in Konoha, Jiraiya was getting annoyed by the council, as they kept on trying to get Tsunade to rescind the jail sentence for Sasuke, and also have her force Jiraiya to train Sasuke. Jiraiya kept up the facade that Tsunade was still in the village. Impersonating her for so long is not easy. I wonder if they will figure it out. I also have to thank the Gaki for the idea of using shadow clones for my research. They get caught, but I still get the information, Jiraiya thought to himself as he, in the form of Tsunade, developed a lecherous grin. The door opened with a clone of Shizune, another of his clones. Tsunade-sama, you have guests, Shizune stated as she bowed and let the elders pass with a thinly veiled scowl. Jiraiya also scowled as they entered. To what do I owe this honor? Jiraiya asked as if not knowing what the subject would be. We are here to discuss the clans not accepting the betrothals. We want you to help matters along, Tsunade Hime, Homura stated kindly. Jiraiya scowled even worse, making Tsunade's features become very angry. In actuality, he was enjoying this game of political twists and turns. No, Jiraiya simply stated. What do you mean by no? Koharu asked, as if confused. No, I will not help, Jiraiya stated. Also, why have you not declared your apprentice a missing nin? She is not in the village, Homura inquired. She is running a mission for me. She is accompanying Naruto to his first destination along with a couple others. If you have a problem with that, then take it up with Hiashi. Now I'm busy, so get out of my office. Jiraiya ordered. Why is she with the demon? Danzo asked. Jiraiya scowled at this comment. You would insult a member of my clan. As for Hinata, that is between her and I. Naruto needed medical attention for the next few weeks and she is there as his nurse, shall we say. Now, get out, Jiraiya yelled, as the Anbu left the corners and showed themselves to the elders, causing Jiraiya to grin, or do I have to have you thrown out? Jiraiya asked. He then added, please say, yes, I'm sure it would make Naruto happy to have some retribution. The elders looked offended but left the room quickly. Not a half an hour later, Hiashi was in the office complaining about the elders. Do you know that they had the audacity to say that if Hinata wasn't available then I should allow Hanabi to wed Sasuke? They also asked me where Hinata-chan was, so I told them she was on a mission for you. They are also pressing to have the Uchiha released early from prison, Hiashi stated. I know. I had council member Haruno and her daughter in the office asking for a conjugal visit for her daughter. I turned it down immediately. My biggest problem right now is trying to keep up with Tsunade's schedule at the hospital. I'm no medic and playing the part of two medics is really getting hard, Jiraiya admitted. A grin appeared on his face, and he suggested, I think it is about time for Tsunade to disappear. Over the next month Haku was healed to nearly normal, his lung and chakra system were rebuilt. Temari had begun sleeping in the same room and on the same futons, as Naruto and Hinata. She and Hinata would switch off cuddling with Naruto each night. While Naruto had kissed Hinata, he had yet to kiss Temari. Rushi and Anko kept on being caught in compromising positions, about once a week, with either Rushi's hand up her skirt or her hand down his pants, or both. The group was betting that they had either already slept with each other or would soon. Anko and Rushi were keeping quiet either way. Naruto and Naruko kept running into a name problem with both of their names being so similar that sometimes each would answer for the other. Worse yet, they had not worked out a solution for clone memories. While Naruto liked Haku, he did not care for the memories of Naruko kissing him, even if it brought up a pleasant feeling. Naruko was in a similar boat. While she liked Hinata, she had never wanted to kiss her, so when the stray memory of kissing Hinata came up, she had to suppress the urge to kiss the girl by either immediately taking Haku's lips or remembering Haku's physical exam. Gaara and Temari continued to train the two girls who had accompanied them. Temari eventually had to have a talk with Matsuri about her feeling towards Gaara. This ended with a fight between the two females about trying to give Jinchuriki love. Matsuri finally at the end of the month came before Gaara and admitted that she was in love with him. Gaara, not knowing what to do, asked Naruto and Haku what he should do. Both of them told him to accept her feelings and see where this would go. They also advised that he also talk with her about his feelings or lack thereof, whatever they may be. Naruto also advised that he talk about his early childhood, so she would have a frame of reference for his feeling or lack thereof. From that point on, Matsuri and Gaara became inseparable. Tsunade also received a message from Jiraiya that he was going to have a clone of her leave the village in a couple weeks, even after the village has just started to chisel her face onto the mountain. Tsunade smirked at this, as he had already secured the position of Hokage for when she stepped down, so that the council wouldn't do something rash like have Sasuke elected Hokage, or something to that effect. Jiraiya in the letter also promised a showy departure for her from the village. Her big worry was about her supposed leaving and the council trying to muck things up. Naruto's control increased by leaps and bounds because of Naruko's clones. Naruto, Naruko, and Haku finally agreed to change Naruko's name to Akemi, and thus they would stop the confusion with Naruto. Medical training also continued, as Naruto now had enough control to do a poor version of the chakra scalpel. Along with the added control came more proficiency with the Rasengan, and other jutsu. Tsunade and Shizune taught the 4 new jutsu, as they continued to excel on their studies. Anko and Rushi disappeared for a couple of days on to a secluded island. When they came back, they were tight-lipped and would not talk about their absence. Although Anko would always seem to leer at Rushi and blush profusely, as no one could tell if Rushi was blushing because of his facial markings. Construction began with the ninja compound during this time period, and Tazuna had to actually import workers to do all the construction. This in itself caused more construction to happen, as they also needed housing. The village nearly doubled in size in the time of a week. Teams also did jobs around the village and away from the village, as there were the unfinished mission scrolls that they had taken from Konoha. Tsunade shifted the teams around, as the skills needed for each job differed. Teams varied. Even on time there was an all-Jinchuriki team of Rushi, Yugito, Naruto and Gaara. This team was able to capture a small group of high-ranked missing nin. Sakura was angry, very angry, as she couldn't visit Sasuke and her mother kept on telling her it was Naruto's fault. so she blamed him for her troubles, like she usually did. The only thing was that she couldn't take her anger out on Naruto for the problems he had caused. Worse yet, Ino and her were having more problems, as Ino stuck to the premise that it wasn't Naruto's fault, and that it actually was the fault of the village council. Flashback. Sakura sat back on the bench in front of the flower shop. You know, Ino, even with him not here, Naruto is still causing problems, she ranted. Ino gasped at this. What do you mean? He hasn't even been here for a while and you're blaming him for things that are going on around here? She asked. Sakura nodded. Yeah, my mother even said that Jiraiya-sama refused to train Sasuke-kun. Can you believe that? She asked. Ino shook her head. You're being a fool, Sakura. Jiraiya-sama wouldn't train Sasuke, because he trained Naruto, and Sasuke nearly killed him, she explained. Oh, you're just being overzealous, Ino. Naruto wasn't hurt that bad, or Tsunade-sama would have gone with him to make sure he was alright, Sakura explained. Ino just shook her head at the blind faith her friend seemed to have towards Sasuke. Sakura, you know that Naruto heals faster than normal, right? She asked, as Sakura nodded. Well, from what I heard, Sasuke hit Naruto several times with that Chidori attack. You know that it's an assassination jutsu. In other words, he meant to kill Naruto, not just hurt him and get away, he actually meant to kill him, she explained. Sakura was stumped by the realization that Sasuke did know that jutsu and would actually use it on Naruto. Sure, he was annoying, but to actually try to kill him. She thought to herself. She stammered an attempt to defend Sasuke, but at the moment she couldn't because of the fight on the roof a few days before their return, and just sat there with her mouth agape. Ino put her hand on Sakura's shoulder, and then said, Sasuke betrayed the village, and worse yet, he tried to kill a teammate. Naruto may be an idiot, but he is loyal. The council was up to something when they did what they did. They even tried to force Jiraiya to train Sasuke. I also heard that Sasuke tried to force Gamabunta to be his summons with his Sharingan. That is no way to treat a summons. Look, think it over, and if you're still so hung up on Sasuke that you can't see the truth, then fine, you can have him. Me, I'm looking for other fish, and you can tell your mother that I have refused the marriage proposal with Sasuke, as my clan now opposes the Uchiha, she explained, as she got up and went back into the flower shop. End flashback. Damn Ino pig, why does she have to make so much sense? Is my mother pushing me into something wrong? Sakura thought to herself. Have I really been such a bad teammate to ignore what might have happened to Naruto? Sakura continued to ponder for the next hour, as she waited for Kakashi to show up. Hiashi wasn't a happy man, no, he wasn't. The village council had again voted to try to make Hinata a missing nin, again they had failed. Jiraiya had forced the issue with having to pull rank on the shinobi members and forcing them to vote against this or face sanctions from the Hokage. Jiraiya looked very tired, as he was still in the form of Tsunade. So what do you have planned for your retirement, Tsunade-sama? Hiashi asked, knowing it was actually Jiraiya. Hanabi looked up confused at Jiraiya. You're retiring, Tsunade-sama. Jiraiya smiled warmly at the young Hyuga. Yes, child, I'm retiring and going to let the pervert take over. I can't stand being away from the one person who brought meaning back to my life, he explained. Who is that, Tsunade-sama? Hanabi asked, confused and wanting to know, as she had seemed to spend more time at the Hyuga residence than at the Hokage mansion. Jiraiya smiled warmly at Hanabi, and answered, why, Naruto Uzumaki, who else? But they have just started construction of your face on the mountain. Why would you leave now? She asked innocently. Jiraiya chuckled at the question, but decided to answer, because of Naruto, I took up the mantle of Hokage, so that he could eventually take it, but with the way things are now, he trailed off, putting his head on his hand and looking off into the distance. Boy, am I a good actor, or what? He thought to himself. Hiashi watched this conversation with mirth, and thought, he's such a ham, but it is believable, and that is what counts. Kabuto, how are the missions to find the Kyuubi brat and to get my new vessel from Konoha proceeding? Orochimaru asked. Kabuto smirked, and said, the mission to get Sasuke-kun is going well, we should have him within 6 months and you can begin his training then. As for Naruto-kun, we're not sure where he is. We have sent agents all over, the ones to Wave have not reported, nor have the ones in Suna, Iwa, or Kumo. We did receive an interesting message from our spies in Kiri though. Orochimaru smiled, and asked, oh, what do they say? They say that Tsunade is in Wave, but we can't verify this in any way though, Kabuto replied. Orochimaru began to laugh, and asked to no one in particular, what are you up to, Tsunade Hime? No, Naruto, that isn't how you should do that attack. Yugito yelled. Who taught you how to fight? Naruto picked himself off the ground, and answered, well, I sort of trained myself, when the teachers taught me things, such as kata that wouldn't easily work together for me. Yugito and Anko shook their heads, as Anko commented, so the great Kakashi didn't help you with your taijutsu. Naruto shook his head to her question. Big surprise for the laziest guy in Konoha, did he teach you any jutsu? She asked. Naruto shook his head, as he ruffled his hair. She smiled at her Nissen. Hayo is as good as Nissen, she sang out loud, as Naruto just shook his head and the Junin just laughed. Chimera laughed and spoke quietly, Naruto Nissen. Everyone turned and looked at her. Naruto smiled, and asked, yes, Chimera-chan. Chimera blushed, and asked, why do you not hate that village, for what they did to you? I know I hate Orochimaru for what he did to us. Naruto sighed, as he then embraced the girl, and said, what would it do if I hated them? Would it change their minds? How would it help me become a better person? I put up with the idiots because there are people there that I care about. Those are the people that make putting up with the heartache worth it in the end. The others can have their stupid opinions. Chimera began to sob, and said, thank you Naruto Nissen. Anytime, Chimera-chan, anytime, Naruto whispered, as he continued the embrace. Yugito edged her head and smiled. You've got a special one there. Too bad Konoha didn't realize what they had, she commented sadly. Anko put her arm on Yugito's shoulder, and said, that he is. Akemi knew there had to be a way to block some of the memories from getting to Naruto, and others from him getting to her. She especially didn't want this afternoon's memories to get to Naruto, as he might injure Haku, and she didn't want that to happen. A makeout session had gone a little too far. While they had come darn close. Luckily Haku had stopped them, or there may have been an explanation she didn't want to give to either Tsunade or Naruto. Best she could figure is that she had gone into heat, but wanted to talk to Hana to make sure. The funny part was that Haku would need a new outfit, as she had literally shredded it in a passion-induced haze. She had not hurt Haku, just his clothes. She understood the urges, but not the force behind them. When she came back to her senses, she had turned bright red, but the more embarrassing part was seeing Haku and her hovering over him in the same state. She decided that they should have separate rooms for at least a few days until these urges passed. She just was worried that Naruto would be angry with her. Hinata came into the room and noticed Akemi was in distress. Akemi-chan, are you okay? Akemi immediately broke down and admitted to her transgression. Okay, I did it, I almost took Haku-kun. I felt the needed to have him, it was so overwhelming. Hinata giggled and shook her head, and said, oh, is that all? Akemi was dumbfounded by the Hyuga's lack of being offended. Is that all? Is that all? It's enough, she screamed. She then continued, what if Naruto-kun found out? He would either hurt Haku-kun or me for doing that, she admitted and then blushed profusely. Hinata wrapped Akemi in a hug, and said, I've been in a similar boat to you. I want Naruto-kun so bad, but I understand that we need to wait. Also with Tamari-chan we have other things to consider. The day Anko-chan came, I nearly took Naruto-kun for fear that she might have him first, she admitted, as Akemi held her mouth open in shock. She continued, yes, Akemi-chan, we have those urges about those we love and desire. If I may ask, how far or close did you get? Akemi blushed, and replied, we were both and let's just say it was close. Haku-kun decided that we weren't ready and hugged me until the urge lessened enough for us to get dressed. I just am worried that Naruto-kun will be mad with me. Hinata giggled, and said, Naruto-kun wouldn't be mad, maybe disappointed that you didn't wait, but he would never be mad at his little sister. He will be happy to know that Haku-kun took the responsibility for you. Truth be told, Naruto-kun is the one who keeps our relationship from going too far. He has a fear of being a father. He's worried that if he has children right now he couldn't be a good father to them. I would tend to disagree, but with all that we have learned from becoming apprentices to Tsunade-sama, I agree that we're not ready to be parents. Akemi embraced Hinata, and said quietly, thank you Hinata-nisan. So how do I hide it from Naruto-kun, as he gets my memories from my shadow clones? Hinata thought for a minute, and then said, how about you think more about what you want transferred and keep those thoughts you want to keep to yourself out of your mind. It might help. Akemi thought for a moment and then made a hand sign, and whispered, shadow clone jutsu. Hinata wondered why Akemi had a devilish grin on her face, but put it up to the Uzumaki prankster attitude, if only she knew. Naruto was in the middle of a spar with Rushi when an image of Hinata stepping into a path came to his mind. His face went bright red, as Rushi kicked Naruto into a tree. Rushi shook his head, and said, Naruto, you need to concentrate, if you are to fight Akatsuki on an even playing field. Naruto shook off the feeling of the impact and turned to Rushi and said, sorry, I think one of mine or Akemi's shadow clones are up to no good. Rushi raised an eyebrow, and asked, how so? Naruto turned beet red, wiped some blood from his nose, and shook his head, as he replied, nope, not going to explain. Naruto retook his stance and continued the spar. Kurabi stepped forward and asked, how well do you know your Biju, Naruto? Naruto stood and thought about the question, and then answered, well, every time I've met him, he's been a jerk. I first met him when Ero Sennin threw me off a cliff and I summoned Gamabunta. Tsunade grinded her teeth at hearing this. She knew Jiraiya was a little unusual in his training habits. Kurabi and the other looked at Naruto in awe, and only could ask, how exactly were you treated? Naruto became unusually sheepish, as he said, I was ignored or shunned most of my life. A few beatings here and there, but the third took care of me. He said happily. Yugito took him by the shoulder and pulled him to the bench. Naruto, Kurabi and I are the Jinchuriki of Kumo, his Biju is only second to yours. He is the brother to the current Raikage, she said kindly. She then looked at Tsunade and asked, so your fourth sealed the 9 tails into a total stranger's child, a true orphan. Tsunade bit her nail, as she weighed the pros and cons of telling Naruto his heritage. She sighed, as she began to speak, Naruto, there are a few things you need to know. Jiraiya and I were going to tell you when we thought you would be ready to hear this, but seeing as there doesn't appear to be a good time, she took a deep breath, and asked, how do you feel about the fourth for sealing the Kyuubi in you, Naruto? Naruto thought hard and several emotions came to the surface. First of all, I admire him for being the best Hokage ever, but I'm also angry at him for forcing me to have such a hard life. In a way I understand why they treated me the way they did, but in other ways, I still don't understand. I protect them from the Kyuubi. Most of all, why did he choose me? Weren't there other children he could have chosen? He asked, as his eyes became very cold. Tsunade sat down beside Naruto and began to rub his back. He did worry about who he sealed the Kyuubi into. You're special in so many ways, I can't begin to explain, she said, as she hugged him, and he returned the hug. But why me? He asked again. Naruto, can you give me a physical description of the fourth? She asked, as she looked into his eyes. Naruto nodded and answered, he has bright spiky blonde hair, and blue eyes. Tsunade turned to Anko, and asked, Anko, give me a physical description of Naruto. Anko looked at her in confusion, but answered, the Gaki has bright spiky blonde hair, and blue. She then looked directly at Tsunade, who nodded her head. No way, the Gaki is the fourth brat. Naruto watched the discussion between Tsunade and Anko only to become more confused. Huh, was all he could ask. Tsunade lifted his chin and kissed him on the forehead, and said, Naruto-kun, you're the son of Minato Namikaze, the fourth Hokage of Konohagachure no Sato, and Kushina Uzumaki. It suddenly hit Naruto and he began to shake his head, and whispered, no, no, how could he make his own son's life so miserable? He suddenly got up and ran from the area, much to the surprise of most gathered. Anko shook